Hello, everyone. Today we are going to be teaching the concept of translanguaging. My name is Anali Jaramillo, and my peers are Claudia Vasquez, Amanda Best, and Kaylee Fowler. Today we are going to be checking for the understanding of our students by having them do thumbs up and thumbs down, and we'll be calling on random students to ask them questions. We will begin our lesson by sharing our own experiences of being a bilingual student. So I would start by sharing my experience, and then my peer Claudia would go ahead and share her experience as a bilingual student. And then we would open the opportunity for our students to come in and then share their own experiences as bilingual students.
So the goal of Translanguage is by the end of the lesson, you will be able to demonstrate an understanding of the concept of Translanguage. You will have learned strategies for applying Translanguage to your future classrooms.
So to kind of, after we've talked about our examples of it, now we're going to teach them what it actually is. So the concept of translanguaging is actually just a person who can speak more than one language and how we can integrate that into our classroom experience with our students.
Point, we would talk about some of the issues that teachers might have when they're starting to use translanguaging within their classroom. And we kind of discussed two different main issues that we would want our students to understand, and they flow together. So that first one would be that most classrooms in the United States do not use dual language education. So one of the first issues that a teacher is going to have to overcome is encouraging the program to actually see this as a beneficial opportunity for students. So they're going to have to get everybody on board and see this as something that's valuable. Now that flows into that second issue, like I mentioned earlier, that has to do with the unknown, unacknowledged, and often denied biases that are pushed by society that are held by teachers, faculty, students, and their parents. So we would, at this point, really try to get our students to understand that if they want to use translanguaging in their classroom, they're going to have to be patient and open-minded and really try to get their students and parents and teammates to also be patient and open-minded in order for this process to be beneficial for everyone.
We will then continue by talking about the benefits of translanguaging. And the first benefit that we will be covering is language and cultural development. Translanguaging helps students with the development of their home language as well as the development of the English language. And utilizing translanguaging during early childhood development gives the student another arena, which in this case would be the classroom, to practice switching between two cultures. It also pairs with the idea of CSP because it's encouraging them to develop multiple languages and identities rather than forcing them to assimilate.
Okay, so the second benefit would be social development, which is student interaction with others will be encouraged and facilitated through translanguage. Humans tend to fear and despise people and concepts that are different from themselves. So through translanguage, all children are taught in fundamental years to be inclusive and respectful of other cultures and ideas.
We would then wrap up this benefits section by talking about content learning. So we found through lots of research in different age groups and classrooms that allowing students to use multiple languages is beneficial to their understanding of different concepts and content within the classroom. So at this point, we would then make sure we used our thumbs up, thumbs in the middle, and thumbs down with our students to make sure that they really were keeping up, because we've presented so much content at this point. We want to make sure that they're understanding what we're talking about. And then we can also engage any students with thumbs in the middle or thumbs down and ask clarifying questions to make sure that before we move on and present them with more information, that we're all on the same page.
So once we've figured out if all of our classmates are on track with us, we'll go into some examples. And there's A couple examples that I think are pretty important to student success and how they're actually going to succeed using translanguaging. And the first one is reading. So giving them the opportunity to read a book in their own language or have a book read to them in their own language, and then it read again in English in some way, shape, or form. And then also with communication, letting students freely communicate in their home language with other students who can communicate in that language, as well as talking in English for the students who can't speak their home language. And another example would be writing. We think it's really prevalent that students get to practice writing their home language, but when they do that, because maybe a teacher doesn't know it or a fellow student doesn't know that language, them translating into English, so you have the examples of both and they're practicing both. And then another one that we thought would kind of be fun for students to do is music or some kind of nursery rhyme or jingle in their home language and also in a foreign language. So example would be Twinkle Twinkle Little Star kind of thing. Have it in English the way everybody knows it, and then also have it in Spanish or have it in Japanese or Chinese or whatever the class language is.
We also have some examples of how we personally would apply this in our classroom, and these are ideas for our students. So the first one is the restroom pass. So when you have the restroom pass, it is important to label it in English, but also include the words for restroom in the other languages that the students speak. So their primary language. And then it is also important to teach them common words in the other languages. So if we have a student in our classroom that speaks Spanish, we would teach them common words for words like please, thank you, water, restroom. And then we would also teach our students to introduce themselves in those languages. And these languages can include languages like Spanish, Punjabi, American Sign Language, and many others. We would also make sure that when we have numbers on our wall in the classroom, we would write the number in English and then in the other languages as well. When we ask questions in the classroom, if the teacher speaks that second language, then we would ask our questions in English, and then we would repeat that same question in our students' primary language if we can speak that language.
Okay, so for this activity, students will go into breakout rooms for 5 minutes. We will be discussing 5 subjects. The first one is, with your group members, talk about the understanding of the concept of translanguage. The second one is, together come up with one way to implement the concept in your classroom. The third one is, assign one person to be the note taker and presenter. The fourth one is, we will be joining groups at random to see how you are doing. The last one is, you're also welcome to request us to join your group if you need guidance. And after the breakout room, we will be going back into the room.
And for kind of a homework and to make sure that they're actually understanding and really absorbing all the information, we decided for their assignment, it would be a discussion board post to kind of keep the conversation going through the classroom. So we want them to tell us what they learned about translanguaging, what they thought was the most interesting parts of translanguaging, and then also ask us questions. If there was something you thought about later, or you're reading more of the assignment and you see, I don't understand what that means, ask us those questions or ask your fellow students and they can answer. And then the last part of the assignment would be to comment on each other. So it'd be one comment on a student's post and just acknowledge what they're saying, maybe answer questions if they need questions answered, but it's a 100-word minimum. So you need to we'll need our students to dive deeper into the subject.
So after completing their guided practice, like what Claudia was explaining in the group discussions, and then also after explaining the independent practice, like what Amanda explained, we would want each of our students to write an exit ticket. So this would count as part of their attendance credit for the day, and they would write that in the chat box on our Zoom meeting. And essentially, we just want them to write what the highlight of the day was, what they learned. And of course, this is getting them ready for the independent practice that they'll write later. But the function that it serves in class at this point is allowing us to really start a discussion with them based on what they put in that chat room. It would give us the opportunity to, call on them and actually engage with them one more time before sending them out of the classroom.
So like Kaylee said, after they write their exit ticket, we will take a few minutes to just close our lesson. And we would do this by asking students to ask us any questions for clarification. But then we would also call on random students to read their exit ticket. And we could have an extended conversation about what they wrote in their exit ticket.
So before we end here are some resources in case you want more additional understanding or information. Thank you.